My name is Seyed Rastegar. I come from the Bay Area, California, and I'm going to be talking about how to Islamically reform the education system because I believe there's many flaws in it that we could improve. My aspiration is that the next generation of Muslim youth will be better educated and more successful in the world. Assalamu alaikum. So let's imagine that the year is 1920. There's a man by the name of John, and he's slowly rocking in his chair, watching the dust blow in the wind. After an hour passes, he falls asleep. He's woken up, and he looks around, and everything looks strange. So he goes outside of his house, and he sees everybody busy with their heads down, furiously tapping on these small handheld devices of theirs. So he goes up to one of them, and he asks, "Where am I?" The man responds, "You're in San Jose, California." So he realizes he's in the same city he's always been in. So he then thinks and asks, "What year are we in?" And the man responds, "The year is 2019. So he realizes he's in the future, and he's bewildered, but nonetheless very curious. So he decides to go see how the world is. So he sees the buildings, he's shocked by how much they've changed. He sees big airplanes cruising through the air. He sees cars operating only on electricity. But eventually he stumbles on a very familiar looking building. He enters and he sees it's pretty much the same as he remembers it from 100 years ago. Now this building was a public school. And you see, here's a public school from 100 years ago, here's one from today. There's barely a difference. And this would have been fine if the schools were performing well, but they're not. So today I'm going to be talking about education. And to start, let me first explain how the typical school works. So students are grouped together based on their age. This is the first thing they're doing wrong because, mashallah, kids have different capabilities, they learn at different paces, they have different amounts of knowledge, but regardless of all these, they're grouped together based on only their age. So once they're put into a class, the teacher will teach them things every day. And then once they teach it, they'll give homework, the kids will go home, solve it, come back to school the next day, and the teacher will maybe review it and grade it. Then this will go on for a few weeks, maybe a month or two, and then eventually a teacher will give a test. Now on this test, one student can get a 95%, one student can get an 80, a 75, an 85, and most students may do relatively well, but very, very rarely will every student get a 100%. So what does this mean? It means that not everybody fully understood the topic. If I get a 95%, it's considered a very good grade. It's almost an A+, but there's still 5% of things I didn't understand. Yet nonetheless, the teacher moves on to the next topic, which is always more advanced and usually requires the previous one be fully understood. So this is unsustainable, and students may be fine for a while, but eventually it all comes crashing down, which is the main reason why by the end of the year, over 2.1 million students are going to have dropped out. And you may be thinking to yourself, dropping out isn't that bad. I mean, we've all heard of kids who dropped out. They went on to become millionaires and billionaires. But this is only a very small minority. The majority of cases is a lot darker. Just so you can understand, here's some quick statistics. So dropouts, they're more than 8 times as likely to go to jail. They earn $200,000 less than a high school graduate over their lifetime, and almost $1 million less than a college graduate. If we want to understand how to fix the education system, we first need to understand the holistic development of an insan. So every child has 5 aspects. They have the cognitive aspect, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, and the social. Now in a typical American school, they only focus on the cognitive and the physical, very little on the emotional, and how much they focus on the social varies across schools. But for the spiritual, which Allah has said is the most important of all, they put very little focus on it. If we want to raise a good and successful person, we need a proper development of all 5 of them, not 2, not 3, but all 5. And even the Americans themselves know that our education system is not where it should be. So in a 2015 study, only 29% of Americans thought our education system is above average. But not every country's education system is bad like America's. If we look at Finland's, for example, according to the Program for International Student Assessment, they ranked 5th in the world. Where did the USA rank? 25th. So what is Finland doing that's putting them ahead of the game? It's actually pretty simple. They're focusing more on the development of a child's character and ethics and morals. Here are the words of the director of the Finnish National Agency for Education. At the heart of the new basic education national curriculum is the idea of how to help each child develop and grow as a human being and as a citizen. It's because of no character building in America that nowadays we see such high depression, suicide, and anxiety rates. 70% of teenagers said depression and anxiety are a major problem among people their age, and over 1 in 6 high schoolers said they seriously considered suicide. So another issue with the schools these days is that they view school as a business. So teachers, they're the most important part, yet they're paid the least. A teacher earns $59,000 on average, a principal $106,000, and a superintendent $160,000. It's kind of similar to a company. You got all the hard-working employees at the bottom, and then the couple CEOs and managers at the top. But good schools do exist in America, and there's the good private schools and the good public schools. For the good private schools, they're way too expensive for the average person to be able to afford them. And for the good public schools, yes, they're free, but to be able to go to them, you have to live in the exact area, and in those areas, housing is super expensive. So poor people are left with no option. They end up going to bad schools. They end up not graduating, potentially even landing in jail. But the rich, they get to go to the good schools, they get to graduate, be successful, and this is why the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. And in America, everybody's materialistic. So they see kids not performing well, they think it must be a money problem. So on average, the government spends $14,000 per public school student. Now the state of New York, they spend almost double that. They spent $23,000 per student. So logically, you'd expect them to be performing better, right? Well, let's see. So New York's, not even half of the kids are proficient in English and math, according to their own State Department. You can see only 45% scored proficient in English and only 44% in math. And they rank 25th out of the 50 states, according to the U.S. News and World Report. Now, I've been rambling on and on about all these issues, and you're probably thinking to yourself, do I have any solutions? And the answer to that is yes. So the first solution is to focus more on character and akhlaq, like I previously said, the holistic development of a child. As the Nobel Peace Prize winner Dalai Lama has said, my wish is that one day formal education will pay attention to the education of the heart, teaching love, compassion, justice, forgiveness, mindfulness, tolerance, and peace. This education is necessary. At present, our educational systems are oriented mainly towards material values. Now, so I think we understand we need to focus more on character development and developing a child. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. The U.S. government probably isn't going to listen to us, so the schools are not going to improve much. So that leaves us with one ultimate solution, and that is creating our own Islamic schools. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, this is nothing revolutionary. We already have Islamic schools. And that's correct, but we do not have enough. So let me explain. So does anybody know how many Muslims we have in the U.S.?
3.45 million.
Okay, so the official number is 3.45 million. But the estimates, I totally didn't plan that, by the way, but the estimates are a lot higher. They go up to 13 million maybe sometimes, but let's use 3.45 million. So 22.4% of people are under 18 in America. So if we apply that to the 3.45 million Muslims, we should have around 800,000 Muslim youth. Now, Shia and Sunni combined, we have 235 total Islamic schools in America. The average private school size is 178. So if we multiply them, we get 41,000. So out of all the Islamic schools in the entire country, they can only accommodate 41,000 of our youth. What about the other 759,000 youth? How are we going to answer Imam Mahdi if we abandon them to the public school system and they consequently get distance from the beautiful religion of Islam? But there's also one issue. Let's say we get enough Islamic schools, we have all the Islamic schools we need, many still won't be able to afford them. Well, I have an idea for that. Remember how I said the government spends on average $14,000 per public school student? Well, let's say an Islamic school's tuition is, for example, $10,000. What the government could do is pay half of that. Maybe they could pay $5,000 per student. Now, this would help the families, but why would the government agree to do this? Well, because if the student ends up not going to Islamic school and they go to the public school, the government would have to spend $14,000. But the student is also performing better in this Islamic school. So this is the ultimate solution. And To wrap up, education and knowledge are some of the most important things in Islam, but our current system for them is flawed. As Imam Sadiq has said, to seek knowledge is obligatory for every single Muslim. He didn't say it's mustahab, he didn't say it's recommended, he said it's obligatory, it's wajib. So with that being said, I hope every Muslim can come together to improve the education system so that the next generation of Muslim youth is as successful as they can be and that they're ready for our Imam's ultimate arrival. Thank you for listening, and salawat.